Good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys just confirm you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Thumbs up. Good. Good job. Okay, welcome. Thanks, Melissa. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is 10 cool features you should be using in Microsoft 365. I will start the content of the webinar in about 2 minutes. I just want to make sure, first of all, that you guys are comfortable with Zoom. I know a lot of us use Teams. I kind of get a mixture. I get a lot of people using Zoom, a lot of people using Teams. So just in case you're not as familiar with Zoom, there should be a control toolbar like what you see on my screen here that has a little button for chat. You might want to load the chat window for a couple of reasons. One is that if you have questions, you can just pop them into the chat. I'm going to try to get to your questions. If it's something I can answer in the middle of the webinar, I will. I like talking to you guys back and forth. But if it's something that might send me off track or take me a little longer to explain to you, what I'll do is I'll save it until the end. And I will answer all the questions at the end. So no matter what, you guys are going to get your questions answered. I just might not be able to do it right in the middle of the webinar. But if I can, I'll keep glancing over at my chat window to see if there's something there I can get to. But the other reason is we have Mel in the webinar, and she is here to help you with any technical issues you're having. So, you know, if you're having issues not being able to see the screen or something like that, put it into the chat window and Mel can help you out. And if you get somehow disconnected from this webinar, maybe if your internet drops, just go back to the email that you got and you can just connect again through that link. And by the webinars are always made available to you after the webinar. They go up on our YouTube channel, but because you guys are in this webinar, you're going to get an email with a special handout, plus a link to the webinar. So if you want to go back and review something, you can just go back in the video. So you don't have to madly write things down because you can go back to the video. Okay. Which we are going to send with love. I like that. I like that. We're going to send a handout with a follow-up email. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the benefit of being in the actual webinar, you get the handout. So this webinar is being offered through Great Canadian Training, a company that has a wealth of experience. They have over 20 years. I think we're pushing 25 years now, if I'm correct, Mel, for training and consulting services. We've been around for a long time. We provide both software and professional skills training. We offer it public sessions and private group training. We can do private group training at your facilities, or if you're in the Ottawa area, we also have a training lab downtown if you want to hold your training there as well. But they're always live instructor-led sessions. We can do it online. We could do it at location. Mostly what we're doing now is online, I guess, you know, with everything that's been happening since it is just over 20 years. Yeah, with everything that's happened since 2020, we're doing so much online now, aren't we, guys? But we offer coaching and consulting services as well as custom app development. So many things. Jack of all trades. And so many reasons to take training with Great Canadian Training. A couple of the big ones that always stand out to me is that we offer 24/7 after training support on all the software and professional skills training, which is kind of cool. Plus, our classes will never be canceled. So you can guarantee that your class is going to run, which is absolutely wonderful. And I'm Christine. I'm the senior software instructor and courseware designer at Great Canadian Training. I have over 20 years experience. I'm not going to tell you how much, but I do have over 20 years experience. I had moved to Toronto and I was working at York University for years and years. And I just moved back to Ottawa about 5 years ago now. But I was doing the same thing at York University that I'm doing now. So, I teach the technical courses, I develop new courses, that type of thing. And yes, I'm the voice behind the Ottawa-based SOS the AB experience. So when I'm not teaching, I'm singing. And we're actually very soon, well, we're heading to Montreal next weekend. And then we're heading on a little Canadian Eastern Canada tour out to New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So I'm very excited about that. So if you guys like ABBA, keep your eyes out. If you don't tell me. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover some new features in Word, such as something called, I think it's called reuse files. I think that's what the button is, but it's reusing content in Word, and new contextual comments, new features in PowerPoint, like, morph transition. Oh, I can't wait to show you guys morph transition. It's so cool. And rehearse with Coach. And then some new features in Excel, like people graphs, the new searchable drop-down lists. I'm going to show you how to create a drop-down list. So if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you how to do that. That's available in any version, but in the 365 version, they're now searchable, which I'll show you. So plus more than that. Just out of curiosity, before I start, how many of you guys are using 365? How many of you guys have flipped over to 365 already? Anybody? Oh, you have, Melissa? Okay, good. Two people. I know some people don't know. Oh, Mylene, not you yet. Well, you can see what you're going to have available to you. You use it, and I like the way everything mixes together. Yes, it does, and it also mixes with all the online stuff like the cloud services, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Oh, beautiful. You don't know, which is totally normal. When I teach a course, and I ask if I'm teaching an Excel course. If you guys have ever been in my courses, I'll ask how many of you guys are using 365. And I would say 75% of the people don't know what they're using. Totally understandable. You kind of use what they've installed on your computer. One way you'll be able to tell is when I show you a couple of these features. If you have them, then you know that you're in 365. So that's a good way to tell. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started. Let me just, what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some of the Word new features. I have about 3 or 4 features to show you in each of the applications. So I think it works out to a little more than 10, but I should be able to get through it if we start now. So I'm going to start with some of the Word new features. One of the first things that you'll notice with Word 365, if you guys work on documents together, I don't know how many of you guys ever work with commenting, like adding comments or track changes in your documents, but they've made an improvement with they call them new modern comments. Now, this document that you guys see on my screen, you can see that there are little comment bubbles. Comments have been made. I've actually purposely turned them off. I'll show you how to turn them on again, but I'll show you what it used to look like in the older versions because they still have that available. And then I'll show you what it looks like now in the new version. So you work with comments on the review tab. So I'm going up and clicking on my review tab. And there's a whole section, the whole area of the ribbon for commenting. And right now my comments are off. And if I click the little drop down under the show comments, I have 2 choices. Show them as contextual or lists. The old way in the earlier version was the list format, and that's all you had available. And this is what it looks like. What they would do is open up a task pane on the right, and it would just list the comments in the document one after the other on the right. And the problem is that it was really hard to tell which comment is associated with what. this way. So now what they've done is they've made them kind of inline. They're called contextual comments, and it looks like this. So it actually puts the comment, the actual text for the comment, beside the comment bubble, which makes it so much easier, first of all. And then I'm going to show you some kind of neat things that you can do with the comments. So you can see that Erica has made some comments for me like, this document is great. It's going to be so helpful. So you can reply to a comment. I can click in here and reply. So I can say, thanks. I think so too. Now, one of the improvements is in the older version, if I pressed enter, it automatically submitted the comment. And the thing is, if I wanted to press enter to be able to respond, but type something underneath it, I wasn't finished. The problem is enter would submit it. Now it waits for you. If I press enter, it just goes underneath like I'm ready to type something else, which is kind of neat because I'm always accidentally pressing enter. If you want to actually submit it, you can either press this little button here to submit it, or like it says, press Control Enter. So if I press Control Enter, then it officially submits it. So you kind of have to go out of your way to submit it. And it creates a comment thread. So you see how it's indented. And then if she responded to me, it would be indented. So you can keep track of the whole thread of the conversation. And you can do other things like if I were to go up here and click this ... in the top right corner of the comment, suppose I was worried that Erica wasn't going to see the response to the comment, I could actually copy a link to the comment. So if I click link to comment, it brings up a little slowly, a window that I can click copy and then just close this. And then I can go to an email and I can paste the link into the email and send it to Erica saying, hey, can you check this out? It's important. And she'll get the link to it if you're worried about them missing. But I will show you guys in a minute. There's another option if you want to make sure that somebody doesn't miss your comment. Another option that you have under the ... is to resolve the thread. So if all I'm doing is saying, thanks, I think so too, the conversation's kind of resolved. It's finished. We're not going to keep responding to it. She was just being nice and I'm saying thank you. So I could click the ... and resolve the thread. I could delete the thread completely. Deleting it means it is gone permanently. You can't go back in the history to see it. Resolving means it closes it like it's not there. It will not print. It's resolved. You still get this little comment bubble that does not print, by the way. But I will show you in a minute. If you don't want to see these bubbles anymore, you can get rid of these bubbles. Now, the other thing I want to mention is, remember I was saying, if you're worried that somebody's going to miss a comment and you actually want to, maybe there's a task. Like in this comment here, Erica says, do we really need this part? Maybe I want to respond and say something like, yes, not only do we need it, but I need you to add 4 more bullet points to it. So I kind of want to assign a task to Erica. Now, don't get this confused with tasks in Outlook. What I'm about to do is not actually going to assign a task to Erica in Outlook, but I will tell you what it's going to do. If I click in here, now this will only work if your document is saved on SharePoint. If your document is saved locally, you can't assign a task to them. It has to be on SharePoint. So this document actually is on SharePoint. I opened it up. And if any of you ever work in SharePoint, you'll know that when you open a document like a Word document, there is an option not to work with the Word document online. You can actually say, open this document in the desktop app. And that's what I did. I'm actually working in my full install desktop app, Word app, but it is actually saved on SharePoint. So if I click in the reply and I click the @ symbol, not sure if you guys have ever heard of @ mentioning people. You can @ mention people now. So if I type the @ symbol and I start to type Erica, it'll search for Erica. I can click on her name. And then I can type, yes, we do. Can you please add 4 more bullet points? She's not going to be happy about that. And if you want her to get an email saying, hey, you've been mentioned and assigned a task in this Word document, you check this checkbox here, assigned to Erica. And then you send it. And Erica's going to receive an email. I had her send a copy of what it looked like. I'll show you. This is what it looks like when she gets the email. So it has part of the paragraphs there, part of the bulleted text. And can you, oh, this was another comment I made. Can you check this out? I thought it was, so she got a response that this has been assigned to her, and she has 2 choices. She could either click modern commenting up here, that will open the document, or go to comment down here. Both of those will open up the Word document where she could add her 4 more bullet points. Or if she just wants to make a comment back to me, she doesn't actually have to open the Word document. She could just click add a comment and add it directly here in the email and send it back to me. But like I said, it has to be saved on SharePoint to do this. You can see I did one down here. I messaged her here. But I could go and I could resolve these. We'll just pretend they're all resolved. Like I said, the little bubbles stay there, but they don't print. If you want, you could go up to your little delete button up here on the ribbon, click the drop down, and I could delete all resolved comments. Just keep in mind, if you delete all resolved comments, you don't have the history of them anymore. So if you ever wanted to refer back to them, they're gone. And then there is delete all comments no matter what in the document. So yeah, working with this is so much easier. Now, the next tip I'm going to show you, I'm going to go back to the home ribbon. Maybe what I'll do is I'll start a new page here. I'll do my hard page break, Control Enter. Did it do it? Control Enter. There. I don't want a bullet point. So the next feature I'm going to show you is it's on the home ribbon. It's way down the end of the home ribbon, the very last button. It is called Review Files. That's what I thought it was, or Reuse Files. So if I click the Reuse Files button, what it's going to do is it's going to open up a task pane on the right side of my screen. Give it a second, it'll load. Or not. It was loading this morning. I don't know what's going on. Give it a second. Huh, of course. Let me search for something. It's funny, it'll do the search, but of course, now that I'm showing the webinar, it's not going to show. Oh, is it coming up? Yeah, so mine's doing a little bit of a quirky thing. Let me explain to you what it does, or what it's supposed to do. Reuse files. When you click it, it should load files that you've just used recently that are saved on SharePoint, OneDrive, you know, the cloud services. It should have loaded actually several of them for me because I've been using a lot of our reference manuals, and they were there this morning. It should load these files here. And the idea behind reuse content or reuse files is, suppose there were some paragraphs of text or something that I wanted from another file. Rather than open the other file, like go and search for it, open up the file, copy the information and paste it into my document, it loads little links to the files here. And when you click on the file, it will load the content here. So for example, I'll click this styles file. It's funny, it says we're starting just a moment, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe what I'll do is I'll come back to this. Maybe it's doing something, some kind of upgrade. Or let me try starting a new document. See if we start fresh, let's say. Ah, that fixed it. Well, there you go. So Here are documents that are saved on SharePoint, OneDrive. I've used a lot of these. You could just click on it. Now, I'm not going to click on one of these because they're really big and it's going to take a while to load. So I'll search for that styles. Let's keep our fingers crossed it's going to load. So I know I have a styles document that I worked on that's a little smaller. I'll click on it. And there you go. Now it works. So this is the content inside the styles document. And you notice when I mouse over headings and paragraphs, you get this little plus. So maybe I wanted to insert this paragraph. I can just click this little plus and it just inserts it right in. I didn't have to load the document separately. I could do that with headings. If you wanted to load a lot of information from this document, you could actually just select a whole bunch of things and then click the plus. But I will tell you, I'll just click this little arrow back. Like I said, these are files saved on the cloud. So if I had files saved locally, like on my C drive or my D drive, what I can do, I'll click this little arrow back up in the search window because right now it's showing me all my documents with styles. I want to go back to where I was originally. What I can do is there's a little bubble underneath where I can say, show me my files, and I can switch to local files. But I'll warn you, if it's a local file, like it's saved on your hard drive somewhere, and I don't think it works with GC docs. In case any of you are going to ask, I don't think this would access GC docs. But if it's saved locally, I'm finding it doesn't open the file here on the right. It actually opens the file. I'll try it. I'll click this. I think this one is local. Let me try it. Yeah. Give it a second. It actually opens up the file, which means you then have to find what you want, copy it, go back to the other file and paste it in here. So it doesn't work the same if it's a local file. But I guess it is a little bit easier to access content and put it in without opening files. You can even search for media, by the way. Like if you wanted to insert a picture, rather than go up to insert picture, you can click media, and then you can type something like you wanted to put a picture of a dog. And it's going to search the Microsoft Creative Commons library. Creative Commons means they're free for you to use. There's no copyright on them. And then you can pick whatever picture you want to insert. He's kind of cute. So lots that you can do with that reuse files. It's also available, by the way, in Outlook and in PowerPoint. I'll show you when we're in PowerPoint. You have it available, which is kind of neat. And the third thing that I'm going to show you, I'm going to have to show you in Word Online, not my desktop version. Now, Microsoft is saying that this third thing I'm about to show you is going to be available in the desktop version. So eventually you are going to have this available, but right now it's only available in the online version. So I'm pretty sure that I loaded it. Let's see here. Okay, so I have a Word document typed up in Word. I will want you to notice that my headings, quote, agenda, time management, they're all styles. If you guys know what styles are, where you can select a heading and apply, a heading one style kind of thing, they are all styles. And I did that on purpose because the feature I'm about to show you, they've added an option to create a PowerPoint presentation out of a Word document. So if you typed up all your content in Word, you can tell it to export it to a PowerPoint presentation. Now, in the past, this was available, but you had to do a lot of work. You had to dig to find this. Plus, it only worked if your headings were heading styles, because everywhere that Word sees a heading, it assumes that you want a new slide. Like that's where it's going to start a new slide. So when I originally created this document, I did it with heading styles, knowing the old way it had to be a heading style. Then I tested it out and I took the heading styles off. Not everybody knows how to work with styles. And all I did was select each heading and make it bold. So it didn't have an official heading style, and it still works, guys. So it doesn't have to be heading styles. However, this document does have heading styles. It's just the one I opened. And if I want to export it to PowerPoint, I go up to File, Export, Export to PowerPoint. Now, before I click Export to PowerPoint, I want you to notice in this document, I have photos, right, throughout the document, but this is what it looks like. So let's export it. Export to PowerPoint. It's going to ask me if I want to use a design template like any of these themes. I can scroll to the right. There are a whole bunch of themes. Plus, if I don't like any of those, I can see more themes, but maybe I'll just choose something. This one looks kind of cool. I'll choose this one. And export. And let's see what it does. Okay, open presentation. So exciting. So that Word document became this presentation. Look at this. And what I love about it too is I'm always teaching people in PowerPoint to use graphics in their PowerPoint, not just bulleted lists. And it follows that line of thinking, which is cool. But the only thing is it doesn't support pictures yet. So remember I showed you that there were photos in my Word document? None of the photos came through. However, Microsoft does say that it will support photos very soon. So that's the thing about 365, right? They're always putting updates out. So one day you'll sit behind Word or PowerPoint and suddenly you will have the photos available in it. Right now there isn't though. Okay, now just one quick thing before I finish Word here. One of the last things which I love that you can do now in Word, so I'm back on my desktop version of Word. You know how sometimes you want to do something like you want to change the margins or you want to adjust the paragraph spacing or something like that, and you can't remember where to find these things, which ribbon it's on? Well, now all you have to do is right-click in your document and there's a search up top and you can search menu items. So I could type margins and there you go. Adjust margins. You can choose from one of these or go to custom margins, or you can go directly to custom margins and it will actually load your custom margins. You didn't have to know where to go on your ribbon system to find it. Paragraph spacing, right click, click in there. Paragraph, there it is, spacing. I'm going to go to custom paragraph spacing. There's the dialog box that we teach you. Yeah. Isn't that one of the best? Now you don't have to go digging and searching. You just type it in the search for actual menu items. I haven't tried that in Excel. I should try to remember to, when we're in Excel, to try that out, see if it's available. Okay, I will move on to PowerPoint right now. So I have a PowerPoint presentation, not much of a presentation, really. I have one slide. Everything else I can show you. I don't need any other slides. But the first thing I'm going to show you is this morph transition that I use a lot. I don't know how many of you work in PowerPoint, but we teach you what a transition is and what animation is. Transitions are the way slides appear on your screen. So when you run the presentation and you go to the next slide just appears. And then the next slide appears, and they just sort of appear. If you apply transitions, these different transitions, then you can do things like when you go to slide number 2, instead of having it appear, it drops into your screen, or it dissolves into your screen, or you might see curtains open up. It's just the way the next slide appears. That's what a transition is. But they've introduced this new transition called morph. And morph is kind of in between transitions and animation. Animation, the animations ribbon, is applying animation to individual things on your slide. Like if you want this person here to fly onto your slide, that's animation. Whereas a transition is the way the whole slide appears. The morph transition is in between transitions and animation, and I'll show you what it does. So I have this slide here. In my presentation, I'm going to come to this slide and I'm going to talk about our team. Okay, everybody, here's our team. Some executives here, our 4 main executives and managers or whatever. And then you want to go to the next slide and introduce these people one at a time. So my next slide will only have this guy here. Maybe I have some bullet points or something about him. So I'm going to duplicate this slide. I don't know if you guys know the shortcut to duplicate, but I'm clicked on the little slide here on the left and I'll press Control D to duplicate it. And I'll go to the next slide and I'm going to make it, edit it the way I want it to show. So I'm only going to talk about this guy. I'm going to delete all the rest of these people. I don't need her. I don't need their text boxes. I'll delete them. And you know what? When we go to this slide, maybe I want him over here and I want him bigger. I'll put his text box there. And actually, I think I'll flip him to the left. So I'll go up to my picture format ribbon and I'll go down to rotate and I'll rotate him horizontally. That's pretty good. And yeah, I might then add some bullet points about him here. I'm not going to go that far. Okay. So here's the first slide, and then I'm ready to talk about him. If I run the presentation right now, this is what it looks like. There's our team. And when I click to go to the next slide, we're going to talk about, okay. Whoops, did I just delete his name? I think his name was Chung, and I think it was Chung. But that's what it looks like without the morph transition. Now I'm going to apply the morph transition to this second slide. So I click on the second slide, go up to transitions, morph. Okay. So now I'll run the presentation. So here's our team. When I go to the next slide, you ready? Now we're going to talk about. So it kind of morphs into what you want to show. It's a really cool way of doing it. The reason it works is that this picture is the same as this picture. They both have the same name. I'm going to show you something. If I go to the Home tab, and you'll see why there's a method behind my madness. There's a reason why I'm going to show this to you. If I go to the Home ribbon and I go way down the Home ribbon to the Select button and I load the selection pane, the selection pane is going to show me everything that's on this slide. Text box 11, that's our team. Text box 10, that's her name. Okay, so if I click on his picture, that's picture 4. And because I duplicated the slide, this picture on this slide is picture 4. So PowerPoint knows, take picture 4 that was over here, morph them over to the right side, flip them and make them bigger. That's how it works. So what happens if you want to apply a morph on 2 different pictures? For example, I'll insert a slide here, a new blank slide. And I'm going to put, I'll do it with shapes. I'll insert a shape. So I'll put a rectangle here. Now I'll insert a new slide. And on the next slide, I'm going to insert another shape, but this time I'll insert a circle over here. Okay. What I want to do is morph the rectangle into the circle. So right now it just looks like this. If I run the presentation, there's the rectangle, click, there's the circle. Doesn't do anything special. I'm going to apply the morph transition to the second slide and see what happens. So I'll go to transitions, morph, and I'll run it. So there's the rectangle. Now I'm going to click and we'll see what happens. doesn't really morph. It kind of fades in, because if I go back to this slide, if I click on this rectangle, it's called rectangle 1. When I go to this slide and click on this circle, it's called oval 1. They're two different names. What you have to do is name them the same name, but you have to put 2 exclamation marks first, like this. So I'll click on the rectangle, go over to my selection pane, click here where it says rectangle 1, and it puts me in edit mode. And I'm going to call it exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I'll just call it shape. That's the name. I'll go to the next slide, do exactly the same thing. Click the circle, edit it in the selection pane and call it exclamation mark, shape. Exactly the same thing. Now watch what happens when we run it. So here's the rectangle. I'm going to click and it morphs. So there's a bit of a trick to it, but you can get it to work. And it's a really neat way. It makes it look like you really know what you're doing when you're going from slide to slide. So one of my favorite features, the morph transition. Oh, another one. Oh, this is really a toss-up. I don't know. Oh my gosh, you like that too. Yeah, and I think you're gonna like this. And I don't know if I don't know which one is my favorite. I'm going to insert a new slide. What I'll do is I'll insert a new slide, like how about title only layout? I'll put a title, PowerPoint tips to captivate your audience, if I can spell correctly. And then what I'll do is I'll insert maybe a picture of, I have a picture, I think, of a light bulb. I'll go to my desktop, 10 cool features. Yeah, I have a light bulb. Okay. I really don't know what to do with this slide. I'm not very creative. Look what popped up on the right side of my screen. And if this does not pop up, this thing that says designer, if it doesn't pop up, you can always go to your design ribbon way down the right here, the very last button down here. It's called designer. You can turn it on and off, but I'm telling you, it pops up all the time. And it comes up with some design ideas for this slide. Like, look at the slide the way it is. And then I can choose any of these and it will design my slide. And I don't have to be creative. If I don't like any of these, I can see more designs. And it creates some gorgeous designs. I am using this all the time. And if you add another picture, it'll work the picture into the design. So yeah, I don't know. It's a toss-up between the designer and that morph transition. Two of my favorites in PowerPoint. I had to show you those two. Now, another thing that I show people, and then your bosses, and then and then you don't tell your bosses you have designer and tell them that you worked hours and hours and hours on it and that you should get a raise. Yeah, exactly. I show this to my PowerPoint classes now too. And we have a course that we teach now. It's a combination of professional skills and technical skills. It's called Becoming a Great Presenter. And I think it's Becoming a Great Presenter with presentation skills in Microsoft PowerPoint, where you do half a day learning your presentation skills, and then you learn PowerPoint tips, like how to put your presentation together. And one of the things that I show them is, I'm going to go back to my webinar presentation, is we tell people to rehearse. And they've added this new feature on the slideshow ribbon. It's called Rehearse with Coach. And what Rehearse with Coach will do is you actually go through and start rehearsing your presentation as if you were giving the presentation. And it's going to, I'll just read off my list here. It's going to listen to you, watch what you're doing. It's going to give you tips on the pacing, the pitch of your voice, whether you use filler words, like I know I use all the time. I'm really bad with that. It catches me on that all the time. So use of filler words, if you used informal speech, it detects if you're being overly wordy, that kind of thing. And then after you rehearse it, it gives you a report. It actually offers to give you tips while you're rehearsing, but I usually turn it off because I find that it actually distracts me. So if I'm trying to give the presentation and the little tip thing is coming up all the time, I keep getting distracted. So I actually turn it off and then I wait for the report at the end, but I'll show you how it works. So I'll pretend that I'm starting this presentation. I'll go up and click this button here, Rehearse with Coach. Down in the bottom right here, it says, welcome. I remove the check mark, show real-time feedback. That's the one that shows it real time that distracts me. So I remove the check mark and then I click start rehearsing. So now it's listening to me, and now I'm giving my presentation. Welcome everybody to the 10 cool features you should be using in Microsoft 365. And then if I start to talk too fast, see, I can't even talk fast without making mistakes. You can click on the chat to ask questions, and all lines are muted, and reconnect using this link. And I'm talking too fast here. And then I'm going to talk a little bit too slow, so my pace is a little bit slow. You also don't want to talk in a monotone and say things like a lot, because it catches you if you say too many times. It wants you to use a pitch like I'm using when I'm teaching you guys, where I go up and down with my pitch and I talk at a normal pace. That's what it's listening for. That's what it likes, and not using all the time. So what I'll do is I'll pretend that I did the whole presentation, and I will press escape to pop myself out, and a report will load. You get this whole report. It'll tell you how long you spent on the presentation. It tells me 3 slides was rehearsed. Oh, see, I tested this out recently and came up with I must say all the time, and I didn't even notice I say but I say repetitive language, I didn't use repetitive language. Inclusiveness, it even checks for inclusiveness. It shows you your pacing. I went up, I was speaking really fast, then I was speaking really slow. Your pitch. It gave me a good average. It says your pace is just right. And I think because it averaged it out, because I was speaking really fast and then I was speaking really slow, and it kind of averaged it out. But yeah, that one's really handy. And by the way, like I said, you do have that reuse content that I showed you in Word. It's on the home ribbon, but it's right near the beginning of the home ribbon. It's called reuse slides. Now watch nothing load. Oh, good. Come on, load. Oh, there's the one that I just created, remember? So it will load a bunch of PowerPoint presentations you've used recently. So what I can do is, if there's a slide in this one that I want to insert here, I could click here and it will load the slides on the right. And then I can choose whatever slide I want to insert, and it inserts it into this presentation. So yeah, you have it available here. Okay, let's move on to Excel. So in Excel, I'm going to start with a feature called Analyze Data. You can use real query language. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people have Excel files with a lot of content, and they want to summarize the content. So maybe their boss walks by and says things like, oh, what were our sales, our total sales for each year? That kind of thing. Or how did the sock sales do in 2015 compared to the sock sales in 2017? That kind of thing. Maybe you don't know Excel well enough to create a pivot table to summarize, or to create a chart, because those are 2 really good tools to summarize. You don't have to know how to create them. You can actually ask a question of Excel. So you can click in your list. You can go up to your Home tab, go way down the end, the very last button. It's called Analyze Data. And up at the top, it says, ask a question about your data. And you could ask it the way you would normally ask a question. Like I could say, show me the sales by category. Press enter, sales by category. And it says, oh, here's a chart you can insert, sales by category. And I could click on this and it would insert the chart. Or if you wanted a pivot table, I find that if I type pivot table at the end, if you guys have ever heard of pivot tables, sales by category pivot table, or I could have said, create a pivot table, sales by category. And when I press enter, there's your pivot table. If you want to insert it, insert pivot table. There you go. You didn't have to know how to create it. I could go back. I could say, what was the highest selling? Whoops, did I delete the rest? Helps if I delete what was there. What was the highest selling product? And it tells me tires and tubes, 63,000. If I want to insert it, I can insert it. If I want a chart, I could have added chart at the end. So you can actually just type in your questions about your data and it will actually create your pivot tables and pivot charts. Second thing, if I go down to my import picture, this is kind of neat, actually. I actually have a picture. I'll show you the picture. So I have a photograph, like a picture that was taken of an Excel spreadsheet. It's just a picture. It's not editable, but I want this in Excel in an editable format. Okay. You now have the option of inserting a picture into Excel, but importing it as actual data from the picture. It's on the data tab and it says from picture, like you're kind of inserting data from a picture, from a file. So I'll go and find my file. So I'll go to my desktop, 10 cool features. There it is. And over here on the right, it's analyzing the picture. And then down below, it's showing me what it's going to create. And it gives me the option of editing here if I want. Like if I found that this person's name, it didn't get it correct, I could click in there and I could change the name here. Or I could wait until it was imported and change it after. It doesn't matter. But I'll choose insert data. Insert data. It says you're responsible for validating. But there you go. That was a picture. And it's now in my Excel spreadsheet as actual data that I can edit. Okay, so that's on your data tab. People graph. Now I put this in as a 365 thing, and then I read just recently, unless the article was wrong, that it's available in 2016. I'm not sure, but I kept it in here to show you because a lot of people don't know that this exists. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this. I'll show you. It's called a people graph. It's a way of creating kind of like an infographic out of your data. So it's more than a chart. It's kind of an infographic. In this case, normally, if you were taking training with me, almost everything that we do, we have to click in our data first and then insert whatever we want to insert. People graphs are different. It doesn't really matter where you're clicked. It's afterwards that you select the data. So if I go up to insert and then to people graph, it opens up this little window here. And I have to go up to the top, click up in the, whoops, in the top right corner, there's a little table icon up here. This is, if I click it, this is where I can select my data. That's why I was saying, don't even bother clicking. Don't even worry about where you clicked before. You have to select your data. And I'll go and I'll drag over my data. So this is the data I want to base my people graph on. And then I can click create. So it's taken these numbers for each department and it's put it as a people graph, kind of like an infographic. The title up at the top, I can click this little table again, and I can change the title. I could say employee count by department. And you can do things like with this little cogwheel kind of thing up here in the top right, you can actually change your people graph. So you have different types, kind of like different styles, different themes, different shapes. Maybe you want hearts. Now, the reason I say it's kind of a love-hate relationship, if you want to resize it, the problem is, watch, if I resize it, I get, please extend your app to show more data. So this is kind of what it looks like if you want it as a smaller size. It doesn't kind of resize the content inside the window. You actually have to resize it yourself to fit the content. And by the way, you cannot create this people graph on another sheet. So if my data's on this sheet, but I want the people graph on a separate sheet, you actually have to create it on this sheet. Then you can cut it and paste it on another sheet. That will work. And it will still be tied up to your data. So the finance department, if we suddenly have 65 people, you press enter, it will update your people graph, even if it's on the other sheet. I tested it. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to show you, it has to do with your lists, your drop-down lists. Now, I've got to tell you, I'm so disappointed because it hasn't been rolled out to everybody yet. I think they said about 50% of the 365 users has this option in their desktop app, but they are rolling it out to everybody. Eventually, everybody's going to have it, but I happen to be one of those people. It's not available in my desktop app yet. However, it is available in the online version of Excel. So what I'm going to have to do is switch to the online version to show you, but some of you guys might have this available. I'm going to be so jealous if you guys have this available. So I'm going to go to the online version. This thing always gets in the way. I think it's this one. Yeah. So here's the same file, but in the online version. What it is we teach you how to create, if you take an Excel level 3, I think it is, we teach you how to create drop downs to choose. So for example, we want people to put their names in, choose an appetizer and choose a dessert. And here are the lists that they get to choose from for appetizers. And here's the list for desserts. Now there are spaces here on purpose. I'll tell you about it. But we want to create drop downs that they can choose an appetizer and a drop down to choose a dessert based on these lists. Okay, now that's available in any version, not just 365. So I'm going to create a drop down for the appetizers. Maybe I'll do it for all these cells here. I want drop downs in all these cells. This is as many people that we're going to have fill it in. So you just select the cells. You go up to the data tab, way down here to the data validation button. So far, nothing new for Excel. Right now, I'm going to restrict these cells to a list. I'm creating a drop-down list. And down where it says source, it wants to know where is your list? What's going to make up the list for your drop-down list? So I need to drag over my appetizer list. This is what's going to make up my list. And I'll apply it. And you have now drop-downs that you can choose things. Okay, that's not new. What's new is they're now searchable. So if I knew that I really like cheese, I want to know any dishes that have cheese. If I start to type cheese, it actually pops up with a searchable list. It filters it down and says, well, here are 3 options and I can choose. So as I'm typing, it's actually filtering my list. We never had that before. The other thing is, if you ever created a drop-down list and had any empty cells, the problem is the empty cells would show in your drop-down. No longer, the empty cells do not show in your drop-downs. So if I do it for my desserts, maybe I want to create drop-downs for these cells, data validation, make it a list. And then the source for my list is the desserts. And you know what? I'll even include some empty cells below just in case I want to add more to the dessert list. I couldn't do that before because I'd get all these empty cells in my list. and I'll apply it. When I click the drop down, you don't get those empty cells, not at the bottom, not in the middle. And if I ever wanted to fill these in, I could fill them in, or I could even type at the bottom because I did include these empty cells. Like I want to include banana cream pie. And look at this. There it is, because I included the empty cells, but you don't see the empty cells. So I can't wait to get this. The way that you can find out what version you're in, if you go up to, let me go back to the desktop version. If you go up to File and you go way down to the bottom to Account, over here on the right, mine says Microsoft 365. You know what, Shan? We had that in the old version, and I have that in my desktop version. So here I am in my desktop version, and mine is not searchable. Mine hasn't done that yet, but I still have under data validation, ignore blank cells is checked. Yet I always had issues with the blank cells. So maybe it's just, it's working now. Or maybe they rolled it out now with 365, but it's just not available to me yet. Well, no, because if I go to list, source, let me see if they've just rolled that out to me yet. No, see my blank cells, even though my ignore blank cells is checked, I still get the blank cells. I know, I don't know. Why is that there if it doesn't ignore blank cells? Oh, yeah, I can't wait till I get that. Okay, I am going to take your questions, guys. Just before I take your questions, I'm going to show you just really quickly here. It's hidden under my Zoom controls. Bear with me. Usually I take you to the Great Canadian Training website at the end of the webinar, just to show you where our courses are if you're interested. And normally I go to courses and I show you can go to the courses here in the lists. I wanted to show you something a little bit different. Over on the right, if you want, you can also go to See Course Catalog. And what that's going to do is it's going to default to the Microsoft applications, this first one here, and it lists all your Microsoft applications alphabetically. And you can click on them. Like if you want to see more about this Microsoft 365 training course, it expands. You can register, learn more. You can go to the Adobe. So you can work through your courses that way, which I think is pretty neat. But the one thing that I really wanted to show you when you go back to courses here is a lot of people don't notice these training packages. These training packages are fantastic. So if you knew that you wanted to do something like, oh, you're welcome. If you knew that you wanted to do something like, maybe you want to take all 3 Excel levels, Excel level 1, Excel level 2, Excel level 3. We have training packages for that. So we have Excel specific training packages. We have the facilitation and presentation ones that I'm talking about, leadership, Microsoft Office. I'll go to Excel, for example. Now, the neat thing about these training packages is after, like when you start the training package, you'll get 1 year of after training support. I mean, that's amazing. We offer a month for our courses. This is a year. You get exclusive package pricing. So rather than take them individually, do them as a package. You get your certificate of completion, and you do have a year to complete the package. So let's say you wanted to do Excel complete. It jumps you down. You do Excel level 1, Excel level 2, Excel level 3, and you get to choose an elective. So you can choose from either Excel tips and tricks level 2 or advanced formulas and functions. So you do all 3 of the Excels, and then you get to choose an elective. They're all like that. It's pretty neat. Like if you wanted to do something like creating powerful dashboards, if you guys are into dashboards, you could take it. You take the Power Query, you take the Power Pivot, and then you take dashboards in Excel, which are going to give you a really good foundation for dashboards. And then you can choose from an elective. So you can either take custom data visualizations, advanced formulas and functions, mastering charts. So when you have time, check out the packages because they're pretty neat. And last but not least, you know that we have our free resources, our free webinars. You guys are in the webinar right now. Our webinars are all updated here so you can see what's coming up. Change management will be coming up in June. Helping government agencies organize training, bite-sized computer basics. So check out our webinars. They're pretty good, I think. So do you guys have any questions? So you have Microsoft Office Professional. Oh, you have 2021. So you might have some of these features then. If you have 2021, it probably came with some of these features. You might have them. Very enlightening. You know, I'm glad you liked it. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, guys. Any other questions? You have a great day too, Lucille. You're welcome. You have to go? Yeah, it's 1 o'clock right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll give it a minute for the questions, but otherwise I am going to send a follow-up email tomorrow, and it's going to have the recording of the webinar and the handout, and it will have that. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming.